So if you don't have Python already installed in your system, then you can simply go to the description for downloading of Python. I am using VS Code editor here. You can download it from the link in the description. Now open your text editor and follow my steps. So first of all, you have to create this exploit.py file, and once you have created it, let's write our payload. Start by importing some useful modules. So first is the sys module. Sys is basically a system module. We use this module to execute the system commands. Import request, and this module is also, as its name suggests, it used to perform the request and response operations. URL import the URL lib3. So these both modules are also useful to communicate with the web server and get the response from the web servers. Now after importing the useful modules, let's start creating our program. So let's start by creating a function named as main. So this main function will basically filter out if the user has input something wrong, or if he didn't input the valid URL, then we will basically give him an error through this function, and if he has input the valid URL, then we will further proceed with our next function. So let's start this by if length of this dot v is not equal to. Okay, so why I'm saying that sys.argv's length is not equal to 2, because we are creating something like this. Let's say exploit.py, and then we will enter the URL target.com. Okay, so this is the format of our exploit. So if user didn't input this target URL here, then it will cause simply the error of the program because it's a blank. So if user do something like this, then this error handling function will trigger, and what will we give the error to the user? So it's very simple. We have to write like this, error, enter the target URL. Okay, so this is the basic error to the user that says enter the target URL, and then the exploit will work. Now if user has entered the target URL, then what we will do? So let's say else means the user has correctly entered the target URL, so we will simply pass that URL into a variable. Okay, so let's say sys.argv1. Okay, the sys.argv1 is the URL here. Okay, this is the first argument of a file, so we are catching it with sys.argv1 and storing it into a variable named as URL. Okay, so now let's process further and write here print, let's say brute forcing or something like that, brute force started. This looks good. So user will get notified that the brute force is started, so we have to wait until the process will be finished. So now after we say user that brute force is started, we have to actually start the brute force, and we will do this with a different function. Let's say SQL tracker. We will create this function later on, so don't worry about that. Now we created this function, but this will not work. Okay, let me show you why I'm saying this. Let's comment out this for a second. Okay. If I run this file, Python exploit.py, so you can see nothing happens. There is no error, there is nothing like brute force started. So why this happened? Because we have to call the function. Okay, without calling the function, the script will not work. So how we will call this function? So it's very simple. We say if underscore main underscore s2 This is basically a format of Python. There is what means of this format is in simple words, it will, whenever the script will run, it will execute this main function. Okay, this is basic use of this format. So now when I do something like this, you can see it given me a error. So error, enter the target URL. Okay, and if we enter something like target URL, anything, so as you can see the brute force started. Now we have to create this SQL cracker function. Okay, so let's go ahead and create this thing. So let's say f SQL underscore cracker. Okay, this is so simple. And now this thing will take a URL. URL is what? URL is targets URL. Let's write a string. Okay, basically what this string is, so this will be the password underscore. Okay, it's now it is an empty string, but in the further program, when we will extract the password, we will store the passwords characters one by one into this string. We will append one by one character through the brute force. Let's say the first character is brute force and it's A, then we will append A into this string. Then the second character will be, let's say, X, then we will append X into this. That's how this will work. So let's write the main logic of our program. So for that I'm using a for loop for I in range of, let's say, 1 to 21. Okay, so why I'm using 1 to 21? So if you know, our password's length is 20, right? So what we are basically doing is we are trying to use characters one by one, the position of the characters. Okay, the first position will be 1, then 2, then 3. Here we are giving the limit of 21. That means the script will stop working at 20. Okay, now inside of this I will execute one more loop. Let's say for j in range of, let's say, 32 to 126. Okay. So what is this 32 to 126? Like we know 1 to 20 is the password length, but what this thing is, so for that you have to understand the ASCII characters. Okay, let me show you here. Okay, so here as you can see, okay, these are the characters you are familiar with, the exclamation mark and the hashtag, dollar, percentage, and all these numbers and all these lowercase letters and all the uppercase letters here. Okay, so ASCII is basically a encoding of that. Okay, it represent it into the numbers format. For example, the exclamation mark in ASCII is 33, the bracket in ASCII is 41 and 40. The same way uppercase letter K is 75. So when you see the limit, okay, start with 32 and ends with 126. Okay, so it will cover all the symbols, all the uppercase letters and all the lowercase letters. Okay, these are the all possible combinations of password can be made of. So we are using 32 to 126. That means we are using all the letters on our keyboard. Okay, so that's why I used the limit 32 to 126. Now let's create our payload. Let's say SQLi underscore payload equals to our main payload. If you are familiar with this thing, we have write our payload earlier. Let's say select ASCII string password percentage s and 1, and from users table where column username is equals to administrator. Okay, and then we will close this exclamation mark and we will say is equal to another percentage s. So what this percentage s is? Okay, maybe you are wondering about this thing, why I am using percentage s dash dash. So now let me specify the values of this. It will be I and j. So percentage s means basically we are calling a string outside of this main string, so outside of our main payload, and for that we are using percentage s. If you want to call the integer outside of our main string, then you can write it as percentage s. If you want to call a float, you can write it as percentage d. The same way for string we are writing it as percentage s. So the same way, so what's the value of this thing, right? So the first percentage s value is I, okay, as I specified here, and the second percentage s value is j. So where this I comes from? It comes from here. Okay, this is the for loop. It evaluates from 1 to 20, and where the j comes from, so it's from here, it's from 32 to 126. So how actually the brute force will be? So let's say this is the I. Okay, so I will be the first one, so 1 here and here will be the 32. Okay, and the loop will increase number one by one. So here will be I will be 1, so this percentage s will be 1, then this is 32, and on the second try this will be again 1, and this will be 33, then 1 34 1 35, and that's all the loop goes on. And when this number it is 126, then this will be 2. Okay, then 2 33 2 34 2 35, and the same way the loop will goes on, and it will test all the possible combination of password. Okay, this is how the brute force actually works. So after this, let's say SQLi underscore, we have to actually encode the payload, right? So encoded, that is encoded is equal to payload, right? Encoded is equal to something like url lib dot parse. We have to basically pass here parse loop port, and then we have to pass this SQLi underscore payload. Okay, so this statement is basically encoding our payload, our goal payload. We will generate through this script and loops. So after encoding that payload, we will use it according to our requirements. So we are injecting that payload into cookies, right? So let's say cookies equals to tracking id, that will be something using 1 2 3 4. Then the second one will be this session id, or it's only session, right? And the session will be XSBF. Okay, I'm using the example values, but you have to use the real one into your lab. I'll change this in a moment. Right now I'm using this, and here we are appending our payload, right? So let's say plus SQLi payload encoded. So we encoded our payload into the tracking id of cookie, and the session cookie will remain same. Okay, we are not doing anything with that. Now let's say response is equal to request.get. Okay, we are basically sending a get request here, and we are sending the URL. URL is, as you know, it will be inputted by the user. So URL and the cookies will be cookies, right? So simple. These are the cookies we are using as a header of URL, and in which our payload is there. So it's must to specify the cookies, and that is the verify as false. So verify false is to disable the SSL certificate warnings. When we run the Python script, it will give us warning about SSL certificate and HTTPS things. To avoid those things, we are using verify equals false here. So after that, let's again run a if else condition. So if welcome in the code, okay. This is how we identify the condition is true or false, right? So let's say if welcome not into the response, okay, response.text. That means if welcome string, okay, this is the string as we know into the lab, there is a string welcome which we used to identify the condition is true or false. So if this welcome string not into the response text, the response we got through this request, okay. So if it is not present into this, then what we will do, we will simply say sys dot std out dot write. Okay, this means we are writing this thing into a terminal. Okay, here we will write this for user, so we can see what's going on the back end of the program. So let's say -r let's say password extractor, okay, and plus we'll do vector of so this we are basically just writing the one element, okay. Let's say the brute forcing is started with a, right, the first character here, and here is the a. So with this statement we will print here something a, okay, then it will be b, then we will print, we will erase the a and we will print b, then it will c, then c, d, that way it just goes on. So we have printed the a, but now we have to delete the a to print again b. So for that thing we have to say sys dot out dot flash. Okay, this is simple. We are deleting the previously printed string a into the terminal. This is possible only in terminal, okay. It's not possible as you like use print statement or something, then this is not possible. Now let's say else. If welcome message not in the response test, that means specific string we are trying to brute force is false. But if welcome message into the string, then it means it's the right character of password. So in that case what we will do, we will simply append that characters. So we will simply append that character into a string password extractor, okay. So password extracted plus equals to character, okay. Character, okay, this is the character we are using, okay. Here we have passed it and now we are appending it into the password extractor. If it's the right character, then we will append it, and then what we will do is again same, okay. You can copy paste this or write here sys dot out write, and we will say again /r plus password extracted. Let's continue and let's say sys dot out dot fetch. So I hope you got an idea what we are doing here. But after appending the password here and after doing the flush here, we have to break the program right here, otherwise it will continue looping through this. So for to avoid that, we have to break the program. So our exploit is ready. Let's format it good manner. So our exploit is ready here. Let me explain it one more time. What this function is doing, okay. This is the simple function. It is just verifying the user input, okay. It's not so hard, but here maybe you get confused about some things. So the URL, Okay, let's start with the URL. So URL is a single argument which is the target's URL. Okay, and it will comes from this main function from here. Okay, as you can see, let me pass here URL over that. Okay, so we passed here URL, and this URL will go here, and we will use it in different places. As you can see, we used in to the get request. Now a variable called as password extracted is created. Okay, it's an empty string, and then this is for the length of password, and this is the ASCII characters. Okay, then we are using SQL underscore payload. This is our main payload, which we found through our testing that the website is vulnerable for the blind SQL injection. Now after that, we are just using the cookies. Okay, because cookies parameter is vulnerable, so we are appending our payload into the cookies tracking ID parameter. So after appending that, we are simply saying here all the things verify as false is for the SSL certificate warnings, and then this loops goes on with the response from the server is checked for the presence of welcome message here, and then we will say sys.stdout.write, and we will do flush. If the character is true, then it will go into this and it will get appended into our string, and if it is false, we will simply flush the character here. Okay, this is how the whole loop will goes on. Now let's test this thing, and let's see if it works or not. So we have the password string here. I'm in the cookie, so this is our tracking ID. Let's copy this, let's paste it in our payload. Okay, so this is our tracking ID, and this will be the session. So this is the session. You have to copy this also, and simply come here and paste this thing. Okay, so after this, let's try to execute a payload with anything, right? So it must give us the error here. Let's see. Yeah, so as you can see, it returned our error that entered the URL. Now let's enter the URL. This is the target's URL lab. So just copy this target URL and do paste it like this. Okay. So here you got the message, brute forcing is started. So now you have to wait until it finishes up, but this is the warning we are getting. So let me tell you how to disable this. Okay, you have to just simply go here, and this our warning caused by the URL lib library, by the way. To avoid this thing, yeah, it's very simple. You just have to write one statement here: URL lib3 dot disable warnings, and URL 3 dot exceptions dot insecure request warning. So this is basically a string, and it will stop this insecure request warnings. So let's rerun our program. Yeah, it's a spelling mistake. So let's paste it here. Okay, so brute force is started now. That's just a simple spelling mistake. Okay, so as you can see, our script is trying one by one every payload here. Let me maximize this thing if you are able to see. Okay, so here you can see. Okay, so after running that attack, I got this password string.